I did my best to avoid making a video like the one you're watching right now, or you're about to see. I fought hard against entering the artificial intelligence hype cycle. This is the first time I'm even uttering the word AI in any of my videos. Nevertheless, artificial intelligence is coming. No, heck, it's already here. There is no denying it. It will change the way we live and the way we work. The only question is whether the technology is ready or we, the consumers, should wait a while longer before adopting it. Long story short, I was avoiding AI until now. And now I want to see whether I should continue avoiding it or it's time to embrace it. Now, let me be clear from the start. I'm not interested in AI for general usage. Actually, I am, but not today. Today I want to explore whether AI can help us develop, manage, or troubleshoot applications. Actually, even that is too broad, so let me narrow it down a bit more. Today, I want to explore whether AI can help us with Kubernetes workloads. So, Kubernetes and AI. Can we combine those and get a tangible benefit? The most common usage of AI in software industry today is a replacement of Stack Overflow. In the past, when we had to write a piece of code, find the cause of an issue, or do anything that we do not know how to do, we would go to Stack Overflow, search for a similar question posted by somebody else, or if there is nothing similar to what we're experiencing, post a new question. From there on, we would go through the answers and pick one that suits us the best. A significant amount of today's code was created by copying and pasting answers in Stack Overflow and similar services. Many issues are solved through Stack Overflow, and many more were created by blindly applying the recommendations from there. Stack Overflow and similar services are probably the biggest originator of the code configuration and fixes today, second only to GitHub. Then came AI and ChatGPT. All of a sudden, people started asking questions to AI, getting answers and applying the solutions. If someone asked me, who is the main competitor to Stack Overflow, I would say ChatGPT. But there is a problem though. ChatGPT is not where we are. We work in terminals and Visual Studio Code. We observe the system in Grafana. We talk to each other in Slack. Now, we can get a lot of information from ChatGPT, but that means change of context. We would need to switch from wherever we are to ChatGPT in a browser and ask questions. More often than not, we need to switch back and forth a couple of times. Go to a terminal, find events of the workflows that are misbehaving, copy them, go back to ChatGPT, paste them, get answers that are not what we're really looking for, go back to the terminal, look for more events, copy some more, go back to ChatGPT, and so on and so forth. That's not what I want. That does not work for me. What I want is AI being where I am, and that is, to begin with, a terminal. So I set out to find a solution that will allow me to interact with AI from a terminal. I wanted a solution that will scan my Kubernetes cluster, find potential issues, explain them to me, and ideally fix those issues. And if that is not an option, propose solutions. So scan, explain, fix, or propose. Now, to be clear, I do not expect AI to be good enough to fix issues by itself, but one can always dream. So I'll keep that requirement. After all, that should be the end goal of AI. It should work for us. It should do the work we do not want to do, or the work it is better than us at doing. So, with those requirements in mind, I set out to find a solution, and I found one candidate. It's called k8sgpt, and we are about to take a look whether it is worth using or it is yet another gimmick. I already have a cluster with an application that might be working perfectly, or it might be broken. It's a mystery that I would like to solve with ChatGPT. So let's start by analyzing the namespace of the application and see what we'll get. We can see from the output that it detected two distinct issues. There is something wrong with the service. It claims that endpoints are not ready. It cannot communicate with the pods. The second issue is with pods themselves, or pod in this case. A replica of my application cannot pull the image. Now, this is both good and bad news. The good news is that it did identify 2 issues. I might have more, but it's a good start. The bad news is that it is not very intelligent. I expected it to triage, to filter issues. I hope that it would push me into the right direction. Since pods are not running because they cannot pull the image, the issue with the service is irrelevant. The problem is not with the service, but with the pods in this specific case. What I'm trying to say is that it is doing the right thing in detecting issues, but it is not helping me narrow down the scope. Now, before we proceed, I do not think that there is AI, artificial intelligence, involved in this phase of the process. AI is hopefully coming later. For now, we are dealing with a simple analyzer that does not seem to be very smart and is nothing I haven't seen before. Nevertheless, even though the results are not exceptional, I can say that the first of my requirements is met. Scanning, checked. Now, let's see whether k8sgpt can explain those issues to me. It takes a few moments for k8sgpt to contact the API of the AI model of choice. We can use many models, and today I chose to use everyone's favorite GPT. Now, the outcome is really nice. I got the explanation of the issues and I got proposed solutions. This is the error, and those are the steps that might fix it. This is another error, and those are the steps that might fix it as well. That's cool. I like that. I would have gotten the same results from ChatGPT, but this is much more convenient. I did not have to copy events and logs from terminal to the browser and back. That's really useful, especially for those who already use ChatGPT or some other similar service. Now, if you happen to have trouble with English, you can switch to a different language. I'm sure that that's not the case with you, since you're listening to me speaking in English with a very strange accent. Nevertheless, I can, for example, instruct it to respond in, let's say, Spanish. And then waiting, and there we go. For those of you who are having difficulties with English, you can now get explanations in Spanish or any of the other supported languages. We can also filter the analysis by the type of the resource. And for example, say that we want to see only the issues related to pods. There are quite a few other things we can do, and I will leave it to you to explore all the arguments. Instead, let me modify deployment YAML in hope that I will fix the issue. So I will open deployment YAML and I will modify silly app image to be silly demo because that's the correct one. And I will apply the changes with kubectl customize and so on and so forth. I expect that the analyzer will now stop complaining about the issues it detected previously. Those should be fixed. So let me execute k8sgpt analyze again. It still complains about the service and the pods, but now it also detected issues with the deployment. And that sounds strange. I was completely sure that I fixed the issue. I do not know what to do now but to just forget about k8sgpt and take a look at what's going on in the old-fashioned way. No more AI for me for now. I will get back to it. So I will start by retrieving all the pods in the namespace. Now I can see that the old pods are still crashing. That's okay. That was to be expected. But also that a new one was created. That's the one after I modified the image. And that its status is create container config error. It seems that there is a new issue at hand. So let me describe that pod. Now, it is pretty clear what's going on. The pods expect the secret with the key Postgres pass, which is not there. So let me take a look at the secret itself. And there we go. I found the cause of the issue. The secret has the key Postgres password, and I configured pods to look for Postgres pass without word. That should be easy to fix. I'll just open a deployment patch YAML, replace Postgres pass with Postgres password, and rerun k8sgpt analyze. This time, there were no problems detected. Nevertheless, that was a disappointing experience. It correctly detected the first issue, but once I fixed it, it completely failed to find the second one, even though it was staring at it. It was looking at the issue, but it couldn't find it. And it was a simple, very obvious issue. And that changes things. Now I can safely say that it does, so far, help with explaining issues and proposing fixes. That's the AI part. And in my case, I'm using GPT, but you can use any other model. However, I was wrong to say initially that it correctly scans for issues. It does not. To be more precise, it does technically scan for issue, but it does not detect all of them. As a matter of fact, it failed to detect the one that matters, the one about the secret key, and it detected one that does not matter, the one about the service. So, explanations are checked. Proposals of fixes is checked, but scanning not checked anymore. Now, let me undo the changes I made, the fixes, and try it all again, but with a twist. Instead of executing commands to analyze Kubernetes resources, explain issues, and propose fixes, it would be great to have an operator that would do that for us. As a matter of fact, I already installed it, and all that's missing is to configure it. So let's take a look at the configuration file k8sgpt.yaml. This spec is a reflection of what we do with the CLI, so there's probably no need to explain it. Instead, I'll just apply it with kubectl, etc., etc., etc. Now, instead of executing k8s analyze, we can list results, and we can describe them to get the same information as we'd get with k8sgpt analyze CLI command. And that's cool. That's really cool. I prefer clusters doing the work, so having an operator is a great addition. There is a dark side to it though. k8sgpt is badly documented. The documentation does not explain all the options we can use, and values YAML file in the project repo is not much better. For example, there is the option to send notifications to, for example, Slack through webhooks, but it is unclear how that works nor what the options are. As a matter of fact, the example in the docs has that part, sending notification, but it has it commented, and the same thing is not present in values YAML file of the repo. So it's a bit confusing how to send notifications. And sending notifications is a must, right? And I don't want to scan, look at the screen all the time. I want to get notification when something is wrong. k8sgpt analysis is based on filters, and we can see them through the filters list command. Some of them are activated by default, while others can be activated if we need them. So, if you would like to analyze network policies and horizontal pod autoscalers, we can activate them with the command filters add and then network policy, horizontal pod autoscaler, and so on and so forth. Whatever you want to activate can be activated as long as it is available in the list of filters. Now, you might say that the list of filters is not that big and that you might be missing some additional filters, and you would be right. You would be 100% right. Kubernetes is much more than what comes packaged by default, and you would certainly want to analyze custom resources installed through third-party tools or applications like, for example, Istio or Argo CD, as well as those you developed. So the bad news is that the list of filters is very limited. The good news is that this is a project in very, very, very early stages, and I expect that list to grow over time. Moreover, it is open source, so you can contribute to it as well. And that brings me to integrations. Right now, there is only one integration with Trivi. If you would activate it, it would add additional filters. So if you think that you might need additional filters, as you probably do, you can create your own integrations which will add additional filters. It's open source, so do not wait for others to do it for you. That's about it. Now comes the interesting part. Let's talk about k8sgpt based on the experience we had with it so far. Before I set off to find a solution to troubleshoot and manage my Kubernetes clusters with AI, I had a few requirements, as you heard at the very beginning. I wanted it to scan for issues, to explain them, and to either fix them automatically or to propose fixes. So let's go through those requirements. Are they met? To begin with, k8sgpt is doing scanning, but not yet, at least, very well. So even if it is technically solving my first requirement, it does not do it well enough for me to consider that requirement fulfilled. So scanning is a no-go, which is a pity since everything else is based on it. Explaining the issues found through the scanner works well. To be more precise, it works or it does not work depending on how good the AI model you're using is. ChatGPT, the one I'm using, is not perfect, but it's good enough. k8sgpt is sending the information found through analysis to the AI model and spitting out both the explanation and proposed fixes. The results from k8sgpt will not solve all your problems, not even close, but they are a good starting point. So I'm proclaiming the second, explain, and the fourth, propose requirements fulfilled. Finally, there is my dream that AI will one day not only propose fixes when I ask it to, but also fix them without waiting for me. We are not there yet. We are not even close to it. So that requirement, that dream of mine, is not fulfilled. That's not even in the scope of what k8sgpt is trying to do. Still, that's what I want. One day, sooner or later. So the requirement still stands. So what do I think of k8sgpt? I think it's cool. For those using ChatGPT and similar services, it is certainly a better solution than copying and pasting outputs into browser-based ChatGPT. So if you're a ChatGPT user, I would recommend you to give it a try. On the other hand, k8sgpt is still in the stage that it is more of a gimmick than a serious solution. And that's okay as well. It is a project in very, very, very early stages, and you should keep that in mind when we go through pros and cons. Think of cons not as complaints, but more like suggestions for improvement. We should encourage early stage projects to grow and improve rather than judge them. Judging should come later. So let me repeat it one more time. Today's cons are not complaints, but suggestions for improvements. So here we go. The first con is that sometimes, actually more often than I would like, results disappear. The CLI sometimes reports no results, even though the previous execution might have shown them. The same is happening with the operator. You will see the results appear and then disappear, only to appear again a few moments later. So if you're not persistent, you might think that everything is okay because k8sgpt is reporting that everything is working perfectly, only to find out that it is not, and then report that it is all well again, and so on and so forth. So it's a bit inconsistent or disappears every once in a while. Next complaint, next con, next room for improvement is analysis. Analysis is currently the weakest point of k8sgpt. In my example, it did not report the issue with the secret key, even though it's obvious from the events and the status of the pods that Kubernetes tried to use secret incorrectly. Also, it does not have weights for the issues it reports. Even though the issue reported for the service was correct, it was not very relevant given that the real issue was with the container image. I'd love if analysis would be more intelligent. Not much, just slightly more intelligent than just to spit out some, but not all, issues it finds. So the problem with analysis is twofold. It has no intelligence or weights, and the filters it uses are very, very limited. The next one, the third con, is that it is not fixing issues. I know that k8sgpt is supposed only to propose fixes and not to be an operator working inside the cluster and applying artificial intelligence to fix issues. I know that we are far from that. Still, that must be the end goal of AI when Kubernetes is concerned. I have no idea when that will come, but I'm sure it will. So I will keep this requirement not only for k8sgpt, but for any other AI solution for Kubernetes. I want it to start solving problems, fixing them itself, not telling me what I could or couldn't do. Next, there are no events and no statuses in the operator resources. The operator stores results in spec details, which is okay when describing the resources, but not when trying to integrate with other tools like kube state metrics. I expect any Kubernetes custom resource to have events and statuses so that I can treat it as any other resource. Otherwise, we are not benefiting from the standards imposed by Kubernetes and followed by most of the other tools in the ecosystem. We are losing on one of the main benefits of Kubernetes, which is the promise that everything should work with everything else without the need for special integrations. Now, let's move into good things, the pros. And the first pro is analysis. Now, I listed analysis in cons, yet I'm listing it here as well. It is actually useful. Analysis is the bedrock of everything else k8sgpt does. My complaint is that it is not as good as it should be. Still, it is useful as is, and I expect it to become much, much, much better in the future. So, it's useful, and that is a pro. It's just that it's not as good as it should be, so it's a con as well. Next, we have CLI. This is an easy win. It is so much easier for the CLI that already discovered issues to make API calls to ChatGPT or whichever model you're using than to copy and paste outputs into browser-based ChatGPT. CLI is a clear win. Then we have various models for AI models. Even though the name k8sgpt might suggest that it works only with ChatGPT, it can actually use quite a few AI models. That gives it a lot of flexibility and does not tie the project to a single model that might or might not be the best one in the future. Heck, you can even use it with models running locally and avoid paying for all those API requests. All in all, the project is in early stages. It's cool, it's useful as is, but it's not yet reliable enough to depend on it. I would love to see it grow and improve. Here's what I would like to see next. The ideal situation would be to be able to connect k8sgpt with observability tools. It might make sense to export analyze results as metrics or logs, hopefully through OpenTelemetry. From there on, outputs from the operator could be stored in your observability storage of choice, like Loki, Elastic, Prometheus, and so on and so forth, and observed together with the rest of observability data, through Grafana dashboards, for example. At the end of the day, I do not look for issues with CLIs, but either through observability tools or by receiving notifications. Even if notifications are sent to, let's say, Slack, I will still need k8sgpt to be integrated with observability tools because that's where I'm going when I get notified that something is wrong. The future is, without doubt, in AI. Today, we might be limited to detection of issues and explanations, but that is not the end game. In the future, I expect AI to fix issues, not only to help me understand them. Until that day comes, you should try k8sgpt. It is useful, even though it is more of a toy at this stage than something you can depend on. Just be aware that you might need to pay for all those API calls unless you're still in the trial period in, let's say, ChatGPT, or you're okay running models yourself. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Cheers.